This is our fucking city.
You just shook up the world.
I don't even know where you sitting at.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's your boy, Roland Fonte here with Taking This Sports. Don't forget, we're not only the guys that watch these sports, but we analyze them. Yes, we're back to analyzing sports with UFC 249. We got to thank Dana White for finally making a fight happen, or a fight card happen. We've been waiting and waiting and waiting too long for sports to resume, and yesterday they did exactly that with Justin Gaethje versus Tony Ferguson headlining for 249 for the interim lightweight championship. And whoever gets to win that fight, or whoever wins that fight, would fight Khabib Nurmagomedov finally for the lightweight championship. Listen, I'm not gonna lie, I took Tony Ferguson in this fight. He has a 6.5-inch reach advantage on Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje, as we known in the past, struggles against the great fighters in the lightweight division. Yes, of course, he has dominating victories, but against those greats like Dustin Poirier and Eddie Alvarez, you saw over time with that fighting style that's constantly pressure, constantly with high volume, he struggles. Tony Ferguson is the perfect opponent that has the best cardio probably in any division. It just continues to fight. He doesn't get happy throwing to the chin. He likes throwing to the body as well, going everywhere. So I had Ferguson actually winning a TKO or a submission in the 4th round, but boy was I wrong. Justin Gaethje came in there. The key word is compose, guys. He came in there and actually was not swinging for the fences the entire fight. He was fighting very smart. Ferguson came out aggressive as usual, pushing the pace, pushing forward. Justin Gaethje wasn't taking steps back. He was circling the octagon, allowing himself to actually have the ability to throw hooks. If you're circling, you have a hook. If you're circling to your right side, you have the left hook. If you're circling to the left side, or to the right side, you got the other hook. It was a perfect game plan, and he never gassed himself out. He never went back to the Justin Gaethje that we saw that fought Michael Johnson and all those great fighters. I didn't know that he had made these adjustments because the last couple fights that he fought ended in the 1st round, so we didn't see enough of him going deep into the fights. But man, 1st round, 2nd round, 3rd round, all composed. Justin Gaethje just beating up Tony Ferguson. Tony Ferguson looked old in that fight, guys. Remember, he's 37 years old, but he looked great in his other fight, so I didn't think anything of it. But man, did it show in this fight. I don't know. It's just because, I don't know if it's just because Justin Gaethje's that great of a fighter, or if Tony Ferguson's kind of taking a step back. I mean, think about the fighters that he fought, right? The last fight that he fought, you got Showtime, Pettis, Donald Cerrone. Those are older guys too that are also slowing down, have taken a step backwards. But you got a guy like Justin Gaethje that's in his prime. It showed yesterday, fellas. Listen, in that 4th round, when Justin Gaethje landed a jab on Tony Ferguson after hurting him countless times with the overhand right and the left hooks, guys, think about who we're talking about again. I keep saying the name Tony Ferguson. Just takes every shot. He took everything that Justin Gaethje gave him. Every other man would have been knocked out in that division. Potentially. Very likely. But Tony Ferguson just kept pushing and pushing. So for him to get hit with a nasty jab, boom, and shake his head the way that he did, I understand why the referee stopped the fight. One thing I didn't like, and I understand that Tony Ferguson's an emotional guy, the way that he pushed off Justin Gaethje when he tried to approach him after the fight, I think it was poor sportsmanship. You know what? Tony Ferguson, I know he thinks he's the best. Hopefully he'll be back in prime shape, but at that moment he lost that fight fair and square. You have to defend yourself, not the referee. So congratulations to Justin Gaethje. I can't wait till he fights for Nurmagomedov. One reason why, because a lot of fighters have wrestling backgrounds, but they don't use it. Sort of like how Chuck Liddell used to do it. Same thing with Justin Gaethje. He doesn't really take anybody down. And you know what's crazy? Nobody really attempts to take him down. So we don't know how his takedown defense is. But we will see that in a few months. Hopefully in this year, we'll see Khabib headline against Justin Gaethje for that lightweight title. And I can't wait for it. I won't give my prediction this time. But with that covers that main event. We're going to go ahead and talk about the co-main event headlining Dominick Cruz, the return of Dominick Cruz against Triple C Henry Cejudo. Oh, my heart hurts right now. Not because of the fight, but because of Henry Cejudo's post-fight interview with Joe Rogan in that octagon. saying that he's gonna retire, guys. What's that about? Hopefully it's just a money thing. He's always been talking about wanting more money. He wants $2 million per fight. Pay the man. He's one of the superstars in the sport. Even with his cringy tactics, it's just fun to watch. He's like Tekashi 6ix9ine, right? You could hate the guy, but you can't stop watching him on social media to see how stupid he is, right? Henry Cejudo is a different kind of animal. He goes and beats Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson, one of the greatest fighters that I ever watched, then goes up and beats Marlon Moraes for the title in the bantamweight division, and also beats TJ Dillashaw, calls out Dominick Cruz, and in this fight, he comes out differently. Again, another composed fighter. Henry Cejudo does a good job of making adjustments as he goes, right? You saw that against Moraes. Moraes was landing a lot of leg kicks. He was very confused. He uses that karate style, kind of standing back like Lyoto Machida and Conor McGregor use. But in this fight, he was determined to push forward as a smaller man. You have to do that. Can't let Dominick Cruz pick you apart from the outside because he could do that all day. So he goes and starts pushing the pace, starts chopping at the legs, very hard right leg kicks, left leg kicks, whatever wherever Henry Cejudo could hit him on the legs, he was hitting him. And if you notice something weird in the second round, Henry Cejudo threw a leg kick while Dominick Cruz was against the cage, and Cruz actually jumped. I've never really seen that before where a fighter gets off both feet. They typically check it by lifting up one leg, and that's about it. So that was bizarre, but you knew that it was getting to Cruz. Listen, and Cejudo is landing even overhand rights. Dominick Cruz was having good head movement. Obviously, he's very difficult to hit. Sort of like a TJ Dillashaw. Obviously, that's his craft right there. But Cejudo was still able to land a couple overhand rights, and also being that small, that was very impressive. Dominick Cruz starts to land more blows in that second round. However, he looked like he was getting in his groove. That ring rust is not real for him, but for everybody else, we all say, listen, you don't look the same when you have such a massive layoff, especially 3 years, and he's older. That's why I had Cejudo winning this fight even before it happened. But then in that second round, boom, there's a timeout. Everybody stops for a second. What is going on? Henry Cejudo is bleeding. It's a hairline cut right on his head. We knew that the fight would resume, so everybody was happy. But man, where the knee hurt around the world, literally, right? Everybody was tuning in. Unbelievable how Henry Cejudo has those reflexes like that. Dominick Cruz, whether he shoots for a takedown or something, but Henry Cejudo throws a massive knee quickly and lands right on the head of Dominick Cruz, drops him, and goes for the ground and pound instantly. That is killer instincts that not every single fighter has. And keep in mind, Dominick Cruz is 22-2 before this fight started. His only loss was in the WEC against Uriah Faber, right? That one time that he obviously came back and beat Faber 2 other times. And then you had he had that fight against Cody Garbrandt that realistically, if you look at it, in his prime, the best Dominick Cruz that you could have is really the only loss that he's had. But in those 2 losses, he had never been stopped before. Dominick Cruz starts to get up on the ground and pound, and the referee stops the fight. At this point, I'm losing my mind because I had a little battle picking and choosing fights, and the judges saw it a different way. So when I saw this stoppage, I was not happy. I thought that Dominick Cruz had a lot more in him. He's a former champion, 2-time former champion in the UFC. There was 2 seconds left in that round. You should have given him the opportunity to recover, get up on his feet, give him those 2 extra seconds. The fight would have continued. Who knows what would have happened? But with that being covered, we covered the co-main event and the main event. After this short break, we're going to talk about Francis Ngannou against Rosen, that crazy knockout. I don't want to spoil too much. So again, after this short break, we're going to get into the other fights of the UFC fight card. Hey guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell button for more notifications. So with that being said, we're going to resume with UFC 249. Remember, we left off with Francis Ngannou. Man, I'm not going to attempt to pronounce his opponent's name because I always mess it up, guys. So we're just going to call him Rosen. But man, Rosen has some guts. After his last victory against Overeem, you know what? That 1-second knockout, he ended up calling out Francis Ngannou. Who does that? Nobody, right? Because Francis Ngannou does exactly what he did yesterday. The fight starts right away, and what happens? Francis Ngannou throws a 4-punch combination. Overhand right, misses. Left hook follows, misses. Overhand right, misses. What happens to Rosen? He runs out of real estate. The cage is right there, so he can't continue backing up. Francis Ngannou catches him with the second left hook that he throws, and it's lights out for Rosen. Thank God the referee was right there to stop him, because Francis Ngannou started throwing ground and pound hooks, because Rosen was sitting pretty much against the cage, knocked out. It was just a scary but predictable fight. I actually took Francis Ngannou knocking out Rosen in that first round. Reason being is because I think that Overeem is that fighter, sort of like Thiago, what is it, Thiago Silva? Yes, Thiago Silva in the lightweight division, right? Or the welterweight division. He's that guy that people use, and Donald Cerrone as well. It's like one of those guys that you fight to prove that you could fight with the higher echelon fighters. Overeem was that test for Rosen, and I don't think that Rosen actually passed that test, because, you know, the entire fight, I felt like Overeem was winning that fight, and then at the last second, literally, of that fight, he ends up knocking out Overeem. Yes, did he get the victory? Of course. But look, big picture. What does that mean? It's math doesn't always work in the UFC, obviously. But Francis Ngannou completely mopped Overeem, and just the way that Rosen looked against Overeem, I didn't like him in this matchup, especially with a massive fighter, 261 pounds of muscle in the heavyweight division with a six-pack. Fight with fighting gloves that are only 4 ounces. I just didn't like Rosen's chances in this fight. So I took Francis Ngannou, and that's exactly what happened. I hope Francis Ngannou gets his title shot. I think after Stipe Miocic retires and DC retires, that it's going to be Francis Ngannou's title to lose and everybody else to gain. But good luck fighting this man and taking a title from him the day that he gets it, because he's going to do exactly what he did last night to future opponents. It's not going to stop, and he's very exciting to watch. I can't wait to watch him again. So with that actually covers that fight. I'm very excited to talk about Calvin Kattar, the hometown hero that ended up knocking out Jeremy Stephens. I actually took Kattar by decision in this fight because, yes, Jeremy Stephens is one of those very dangerous guys, but I like Calvin Kattar's stand-up game. He has very good hands, everything all around. He's a great boxer. We all remember what happened with Calvin Kattar against Renato Moicano, where he ended up actually eating a lot of leg kicks. So I thought that Jeremy Stephens was going to try to take advantage of that opportunity, which he did in the first round. He came out and started kicking to the leg. And remember, boxers are very front heavy, sort of like not how Nate Diaz, how he leans forward. Calvin Kattar's more standing. He stands straight up with a good posture. But if you take that front leg, he's not able to plant as much. And so Jeremy Stephens came out, and I like that game plan. He was actually the aggressor the entire time. Calvin Kattar was backing up. But again, Calvin Kattar was very calm. He didn't look intimidated at all with Jeremy Stephens pushing forward and throwing his hooks with a lot of power. And remember, Jeremy Stephens had a 5-pound missed weight by 5 pounds. He ended up giving 30% of his purse to Calvin Kattar, which Calvin Kattar then said after the fight to Joe Rogan that he took that personal, the fact that you had Jeremy Stephens weigh in really, really early in the weigh-in opportunities when he could have tried to cut a little bit of weight. So that was part of his strategy to come in a little heavier, which was disrespectful to Kattar. That's why I love what Calvin Kattar did when he knocked out Jeremy Stephens. I was shocked. Watching the fight, it just seemed fluent. But in that second round, Calvin Kattar looked a little bit more comfortable. He was landing that uppercut straight through the middle, following it up with a left hook, and then throwing that straight right. And he actually did it a few times where it landed clean on Jeremy Stephens. Stephens is a hittable opponent. But of course, Stephens is going to continue fighting aggressively. He only has that one style. What ends up happening, Jeremy Stephens walks into a perfect elbow that Kattar throws. Now, think about how complicated that is. There's a few steps that is required in order to land an elbow that looks like a straight hand. You have to, A, avoid your opponent's blow first by slipping to your left side so you could throw that right. B, you have to step forward as the fighter while slipping. And C, you end up having to throw that while coming in. It was just a perfect shot, landed right on the jaw of Jeremy Stevens. Stevens goes down. I'm going crazy, right? Methuen, Massachusetts, that's the neighbor of Lawrence representing, right? Then he ends up following it up, Calvin Kattar that is, with an elbow that cuts Jeremy Stevens badly on the right side of his head. Ground and pound, the fight is over. Jeremy Stevens stayed there for a couple seconds, just leaking. And Calvin Kattar, like I said, is a dog. After the fight, he said he didn't appreciate that Jeremy Stevens ended up weighing in, knowing that he was 5 pounds over the limit. Take your money, take your knockout, and I'm excited to continue seeing him in that featherweight division. Hopefully we could have a hometown hero, sort of like John Cena in wrestling, right? We're going to have a true fighter from Massachusetts, and like I said, Methuen being so close, I was happy for Calvin Kattar. So that wraps up that fight, and we're going to cover the last fight that I actually want to cover today, and that is Cowboy Cerrone versus Anthony Showtime Pettis. Man, I was very disappointed. I told you guys earlier in this video that I was disappointed in the judges, and I was disappointed in the referee in that Dominick Cruz Henry Cejudo fight. I lost my mind with this fight because I thought that Cowboy Cerrone actually looked very sharp. He looked ready to go. You know, Cowboy just did that interview talking about that sometimes he's just not ready to go. He doesn't feel like he wants to be in a fight. But in this fight, he looked prepared. He looked sharp. His jab looked good. His hooks looked good. He had Anthony Pettis bleeding everywhere. In that second round, he ends up landing that head kick that barely missed. It caught Anthony Pettis on the neck rather than the head. If it caught him on the head, then it would have been night-night for him, and another head kick knockout for Donald Cerrone. But that didn't happen. But the point is, I thought in the first and second round, Donald Cerrone did enough to win those rounds. Yes, the first round was closer, but I thought decisively Donald Cerrone won that second round. And then the third round was also close. But here's where the controversy is, right? Donald Cerrone complains about the eye poke. You know, Anthony Pettis is saying, watch the replay. He's right. In some replays, you can't see the eye poke, but in the top shot, you can actually see that it looks like his pinky actually gets in the eye of Donald Cerrone, and Donald Cerrone starts bleeding from the eye. You could see it is visible. Donald Cerrone is asking for a break. He's telling Showtime Pettis, come on, man. As a sportsmanship, typically, if you know you messed up, you would stop. But let me tell you, a man that feels like they're ahead in a fight would stop there and give their opponent the respect. But what does Showtime Pettis do to his buddy old pal, to his friend, right? Donald Cerrone. As soon as Cerrone is asking for the break, he's coming forward, throwing all kinds of punches. Where's the referee in this moment, right? Where we need him to call that break. I didn't like that at all. Again, I thought it was terrible sportsmanship by Anthony Showtime Pettis, but I thought that Donald Cerrone anyways did enough to end his 3-fight losing streak, and then he ends up not getting the nod, and Showtime Pettis does. Again, I was extremely disappointed in this, and I was not biased. I didn't really pick a fighter for this fight. It was a coin flip in my eyes. Both of these guys have fought before. Showtime obviously won the first one, but Donald Cerrone, you know, he's one of those guys when he goes on a losing streak, if something ends up snapping. You know, there's been plenty of times where I think that the man's going to end up in Bellator. Not anymore, guys, not anymore. But before, when he was younger, I thought that would be the case because he would go on these losing streaks, like I said, and then he'll go and beat guys like Alexander Hernandez and just fight amazing. So, like I said, I thought this was one of those fights that he looked great, but didn't end up getting the nod, so I was disappointed. Listen, we're going to wrap it up with actually giving a couple honorable mentions. Niko Price against Vicente Luque. That was an amazing fight. I can't believe it was a prelim when you got guys like Greg Hardy. Yeah, Greg Hardy performed a little better, but guys like Greg Hardy being on the main card. Come on, guys. What are you guys doing? Niko Price and Luque Vicente fighting in the prelims. Free fight. I was honored to watch it. Those guys were tired in the second round because of the crazy pace that they put in that first round. So I was extremely happy for both fighters. Didn't matter that Niko Price lost. I'm gonna continue watching a fighter that puts 100% in every single fight like that, because that's what fight fans like myself look forward to. And then also I want to give Bryce Mitchell against Charles Rosa an honorable mention as well, because that fight was just crazy, especially for Bryce Mitchell. But I'm giving Rosa also an honorable mention because he defended so well. There was so many moments where I thought he was going to be choked out, where he would have tapped out, and he showed why he's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So with that actually covers the taking this sports episode on UFC 249. So don't forget, guys, we're not only the guys that watch these sports, but we analyze them. Here with your boy, Raul Infante. I hope you guys enjoy the episode.